You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
The miracle of fire must be explained. Like a hallucinant within the dream, fire became. Created life was unreal, but fire not so. As a foreign element to the unreal creation, fire must be known. Wherever duality formed, fire did seep in. Like a crack between realities, it entered into the dream. Now that the dream has ended, and no illusory creations remain, fire as an uncrested element can exist in its real domain. Hello everyone, this is your host Paul. You're listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa for the show dated November the 10th, 2016. The title of the show is all about realities, illusion and living in perceptions. We've covered some of the subject matter before, but tonight we're going to come in at the angle of trying to work through a lot of the processes that people are working with, trying to offer our perspective of what we are doing about it for ourselves on an individual level, and we're going to be talking about the differences between trust and surrender. So for us here in South Africa, it's been an amazing few days as lightning and thunder has hit us, as floods has hit our towns. And we have really been swamped by the duality of floods. So coming from a state of complete drought into floods is an amazing experience. And what I'm really looking at quite deeply at the moment is the duality, the movement, if you can say, which is really polarity, as Almin teaches, the polarity, between the poles of duality of, the drought and the flood syndromes, how we're going from one absolute extreme to another, and how we are living in between all of this with all our belief systems and programs that are going on. And of course, for all our family members there out in the USA and in the Americas, you have had more lightning and fire and thunder going on through your presidential elections, and the similarities here between what has occurred there and what is happening here is absolutely incredible to look at. And we've spoken about this in earlier shows on some level, but this is not a political show. It's just simply insights into what we are seeing, what we are perceiving, and getting some power out of that process to keep ourselves self-sovereign. And we think that is the most important thing to do. But as always, we have a little bit of a fun factor somewhere in the show, and we've got a song that we'd like to play for you, which now describes the current situation. Enjoy. And some comments coming in on our song Knock on Wood by Amy Stewart all the way back to 1979. I think there's two programs that we have, two belief systems that may still be valid, and we'd love to hear your comments what those are. Is there thunder without lightning, and is there smoke without fire? Those are the two things we'd like to ask you today as well, just to perhaps send us a bit of light-hearted comment along the way, because, part of the journey, or most of the journey really, I think for all of us on a spiritual level, is to learn to dissolve that which is unreal. And today we're going to be covering some of these subject matters. In a little while, we're hoping to be able to get Michelle on the line. But literally, we've been knocking on wood to try get this show together today, because our Wi-Fi and internet has been knocked out. Our telephone lines have been knocked out. There's floods everywhere, complete flooding of cars, vehicles, people losing their lives, people being lost all around the Gauteng area, and the water is beginning to flow in absolute extreme yet again to hopefully clear out what has been a long, long drought for many of us. So Almin says that we should move through the illusion of opposition through surrendered allowing. And very often, at the end of our show, we always comment and greet everybody with the eternal ascension attitudes of love and praise and gratitude. And then we always say trust or surrendered trust. And for those that are listening, you'll know that sometimes you'll go surrendered trust or trusting surrender. But Almin says we should move through the illusion of opposition through surrendered allowing. And it was quite interesting, just 2 minutes before the show, our daughter Azia came in and she said, "What does opposition mean?" And I had to try and explain it to her in the 1 or 2 minutes we had before the show came up. And I hope I did a good job of that, because then I could put aspects of what we resist and all of that in. So it was like a mini class in the drama of the moment, which was very, very beautiful for me to work with. One of the things that we really have been seeing within the processes and just discussing within the Light family, either individually or within our groups, is the presidential elections that have now taken part in the USA, and with the election of what really surprised a lot of people was Donald Trump coming to the fore. And I don't really want to express an opinion on it, because I don't want to be seen as knowing anything on a political level. I'd rather focus on the self-sovereignty. But I'm just going to give a little bit of insight just for a moment or two, and perhaps anybody who's listening from the US might have their own insight and wish to share it online with us. And I'd love if you could do that just by please just adding it into the comment line, and let's see if we can maybe include it in the show in a little while. But really my take on all of this is that I think that the process within the electoral setup is now at an end for the US, that big shifts are coming there along the way. And many people wanted, the Hillary Clinton in, and I myself thought that that's what was going to happen. And what has been surprising to me is that I actually had an opinion, that I really had an opinion. And then I've been looking at this going, well, perhaps that opinion is based on my own programming and belief systems and my own desires. So I've been sitting with that for the last 2 days, really looking at it. And very, very surprisingly, I think it's quite a valid point for me to look at, and being able to shift all of that for myself. So I'm grateful for that particular opportunity. But I know there's lots of different processes going and lots of different comments coming up. And some of the discussions we've had, and Darshana has shared with me, for example, a class by Deepak Chopra, where he looks at the shadow side of Donald Trump and what it represents. And we know that the microcosm and the macrocosm are absolutely connected. And my real opinion on this whole process with Donald Trump coming up is that there's two things, is that we're going to get told what it is as he sees it, straight out, direct, and no hiding behind any other facade. And secondly, I think that the people of the world are now going to learn how to rule themselves, because their shadow will become very, very apparent for themselves. And we have to understand that everything in its absolute perfection at this particular moment, and the only thing that we can change is ourselves. So if we are willing to accept that particular journey for ourselves and be accountable for it, then surely a whole lot of shifts and that will come, and perhaps the need to knock on wood and hope may dissolve, and we start being more responsible for the journey within ourselves on an individual level, and then collectively we will begin to see shifts. But as Almin says, when she bakes food for the homeless, it's because of the joy that it gives, it's the inspiration that it gives, and for nothing else. And I think what's one of the jobs and roles that we need to learn to take on for ourselves is to learn to live this journey of discovery 24/7, 365 for the absolute joy and adventure of each and every moment, and being able to fluidly turn on a dime, as Al-Amin teaches, and look at things in a different way. There's been a lot of newspaper opinion as well, and there's a comment that really came up for me in the last 1 or 2 days, that lack of trust creates a US more like Iron Curtain countries. And if that's not a newspaper headline or opinion that is taking us back to the old dynamics and creating fear for all of us and aspects of separation, then there was never one like it ever before. Iron Curtain brings up a whole lot of imagery, and I think we need to be very careful about our reactions and our knee-jerk responses to what is going on, which is really coming all from our processes of belief systems and programming that we have, and of course all wrapped up in our desires and what we think our original light worker, teachings were. Many of us come from different backgrounds and then found Al-Amin's, teachings as we went along the way. But absolutely fascinating insight for the self here. And I'm just going to take this opportunity to really work on myself and create more a state of self-sovereignty. And for goodness sake, living in a country like we do here with our political so-called leadership, we have an exact opposite of that. So we're seeing the duality, we're seeing the thunder and the lightning all spreading across the way there, and we're seeing a lot of that particular pressure and density as everything plays out. But it's all coming to the surface, and I think we should understand that and know that it is you, it is me, it is all the light workers in the world who are sitting down and taking notice of what they have to do for themselves and doing it all for themselves because they know that they can and they know that they're roles. The word oneness is used as a reference, and it implies that many forms enter into the all, that the many become one, but it cannot be. If they could split it all, they aren't part of reality, and dissolve they must. Effortlessly, when there is an illusory existence is finally seen, nothing unreal can into the real come. All that's real is the infinite one. And that's, of course, teachings by the mystic and Seer Al-Amin. And I love these particular wisdoms that come up for us, and especially on our WhatsApp group as everybody shares, because it really sustains each one of us and allows us to see the bigger picture and allows us then to stop really looking at the smaller mind and the smaller picture that unfolds for each one of us, which then traps us into the matrix of belief, and then our programs and desires really come out. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while. But for now, what we do is we're going to play an audio clip by the Seer Al-Amin called Showing the Way Out of the Matrix. It's about 3.5 minutes long. We'll see you on the other side of this.
To define what I mean by yesterday's truth is not today's truth, a phrase that I've used often, and how this applies to the old teachings. The old teachings are not dogma. In other words, they don't tell you what to do. They teach you the principles of the matrix. And eventually, as you leave the matrix, you start to see that the matrix, when it isn't separated into masculine and feminine, has very valid purposes. So, by truth, I mean the flow and the currents of the infinite ocean of intent. It is from our inner space that is received, and then it is interpreted in our outer world. The tools of interpreting your own reality is in these teachings. How to make yourself accessible to the ever-flowing current that prompts effortless knowing and automatic action when it is fully functional is there as well. It can also be said that we have never taught you truth. If truth is the continually renewed expression of the infinite through the vehicles of the many, through its individuations, you cannot hold it for a second because it is always regenerated. We have taught you how to get the thundering voices of programming out of your ears so that you can hear that. And that is never obsolete. There is often the question of the validity of these ancient religions that are thousands of years old and so forth. Principles of life within the matrix change continually. That is true. But how it changes is not when you are absolutely able to hear something coming from the infinite as assistance inside the matrix, not just a man-made concept is what I'm trying to differentiate between, when it is the true revelation from source. The truth that changes is not going to make itself obsolete. It's going to evolve. And when you are tracking evolved truth to understand today's principle of how you can clear the matrix so that you can become truth, you can become the momentary interpretation of infinite intent. So to do that, to become that, even the tools will evolve. To track how they evolve, it is very helpful to see from step 1 how we got to step 144, for example. And that is another reason why the older courses are valid. People tend to always gravitate towards the new course, and certainly that has value, but the old courses have not become obsolete. They simply are the way out of the eggshell.
Stand in serenity, like the heron in the lake, immovable and firm, though courage it takes. Refrain from trying to fix and rearrange. Eliminate illusion by knowing there's nothing to change. And that's from the illusion of the 4 elements that comes the illusion of awakening, of dreaming, of half awake and half asleep. Beyond that which we think of as life and its stages lies a self-sovereign existence of unimaginable rapture. In 2009, Almeen translated information that was coming through her called The Infinite Speaks. And I'd like to just share this with you in part. The first part of it says, when we abandon ourselves, the tendency to define ourselves by what we are not becomes strong. As long as a life of opposites is lived, we cannot know our oneness. In the second part of it, the greatest illusion of all is the division between that which is and that which is not. Beyond such duality lies oneness. The heart is as much a tyrant as the mind and is an unreliable source of information. Omnisensory experience is a more reliable tool. In the last part of that, in The Infinite Speaks, emotion based on desire implies lack or scarcity. Deep felt acknowledgement of oneness replaced the duality of emotion. The only freedom that exists is the freedom from thinking that anything can be bound by the unreal. Obstacles are but the illusory guidelines that direct the steps of the dance of life. We can also use the more pleasant method of following our joy. Isn't that absolutely incredible in terms of, that was back in 2009, and here we are, 7 years later, literally 7.5 years later into this particular process, and we're really looking at supporting ourselves, at taking these aspects of illusion, taking these aspects of living in different realities, and understanding that they are all part of the dream and the awakening process, and of being part of the matrix. And as it all dissolves, as we all start our resurrection journey, individually, and then it will all start to connect and synchronize as we're going along. Isn't it absolutely incredible to know that we have actually come so far at this moment that we realize and can see the work that we did at that particular point is now unfolding, and we're starting to recognize all of it. So if in your world things are unfolding in the way that you don't see it fits or whatever, remember there is perfection in every single moment. And what's been absolutely beautiful is that one of our team members and grandmasters, Diane, has actually penned and drawn a book called The Beauty of the Poetry of Dreaming and Drawing. And she's going to be taking this online for us very shortly to share with us bit by bit. And in it, Diane is seeing perfection in every single moment. And as an artist, she's drawn these most incredibly pencil drawings, and then she's put comments and wisdoms of her own that she's actually seeing in her day-to-day life. And it's really incredible just watching the power of this person as her perception shifts and allows her to see things on this particular level, and seeing the flow and the flight of this particular amazing being. So you can look forward to all of that coming up. It'll be linked to our Belvaspatar South Africa Facebook page through the Grandmaster Diane, and we'll have her in studio perhaps next week to discuss a little bit more about all of that. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'd like to just ask if you would take a few minutes now as we play you some music to put some comments into our comment box here on Spreaker.com. And we're going to play some music by Vanessa Power of Ireland, by what's Exquisite Divine Beauty. There's 2 tracks that she's created that we absolutely love. And one is called Inner Warrior's Heart, and the other one is called Dissolving Human Paradigms. And we're going to play it just for a few minutes, and I'm going to ask you to take this time just to write to us, put some comments down, and please just share with us your understanding of what it is that you are doing in surrender and trust to work with your own processes, with your own life, with your own changes, your own states of ascension and resurrection. And it can just be a simple line if you like, and we just like to get that viewpoint. So we're going to play these 2 particular tracks, and again, thank you to Vanessa Power for allowing us to play it on our radio show. And you're back with Radio Belvaspata, South Africa's show for the 10th of November. Thank you for joining with us. And if you're listening to us live tonight, thank you very much if you've taken some time to add some comments onto Spreaker.com's sheet here. We'll be using those particular comments as we go along to develop other shows and then to connect with you all individually. Because, again, this show is a place for the Light family to gather. The show is a place for us all to connect and just be together just for that 1 hour a week. And we really appreciate you connecting with us. And if you're on podcast, that's brilliant. And thank you very much for listening to that as well. We'll be giving you all a little bit of an experience about some of the work that we're doing later on. But in the meantime, I'm very happy to have been able to connect with our fellow team member and Grandmaster Healer, Michelle. How are you? Yeah, we're very well. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm glad to know that we can have you on the show tonight. It's been a bit hectic with our weather and our Wi-Fi's, etc. have all been down. But yeah, we've done it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Paul. I mean, the truth of the matter is that I was meant to be there in person tonight. But because of the rains and the intensity of the rains, it was just a bit too dangerous to actually get onto the road. So I'm very glad for technology and that we can actually connect in this way.
And the fact that it's working right at this moment for us all and we're broadcasting out to the whole world is absolutely fantastic. So thanks very much.
That is the truth.
So, Michelle, you've been working a lot on yourself in terms of surrender and trust, and you've been really understanding that particular journey as you're going along through the paradigm shifts in your own life experience. And you did say to me earlier on today that you'd taken some time to write down some of the aspects of, removing or dissolving illusion through trust and surrender. And I'd like to ask you to share some of that with us, please.
With pleasure, Paul. But just to give some context to how I got here, is that the fact of the matter is for the last 3-4 months, my life has been one of complete chaos, where I just had no idea about my own feelings, my own emotions. It seemed as if I'd really come right up against the whole thing of opposition and the dissolving of opposition, and it was really very, very hard, because my question kept being, so what is then reality? Whatever I'm actually putting in my mind, how do I know the difference between a reality and an illusion? Because there is an implication that there could be one and the same thing, right. Especially the fact that my reality that I've had for the majority of my life has turned out to be an illusion.
Okay.
So this was very confusing for me, and then the guidance we've been given is that we need to trust and surrender. So I decided that I wanted to know exactly what does that mean. What does it mean to really trust? So what I've come up with, and this is not by any way a limited list, but it's just some ideas which have helped me to be a little bit clearer on my journey. So are we still connected, Paul?
We are, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, Michelle, definitely.
Okay,
yep.
Great. So great. Trust is all about depending on your own knowingness. Knowing that you have the wisdom within you to handle whatever situation you are in. It is about being true to yourself. It is about also beginning to trust your own intuition. And it's very interesting that I've recently read that we're moving from the technological age into the intuitive age. So more and more we need to really start digging down and trusting that gut feeling. And that's all about trusting yourself as well. To trust yourself is to be in movement. It is to be in flow. Because if you are in action, if you are idle, if you are not moving, then you actually are stagnating. So movement and the flow that Min is always talking about is very, very important so that we do not stagnate. your own thoughts and feelings are what is important. And I think that when you begin to trust your own thoughts and feelings, that is when you have the chance to begin to become the creator. If we are the creator of everything in our lives, then we really do need to start trusting our own feelings and our own thoughts, because it's from that we get the inspiration in order to create the life that we are wanting to live.
All right.
Trusting is also about not letting your fear influence your decisions, and believing that the right action will occur. And then with that right action, just allow it to unfold. It will have its own pattern, it will have its own flow, and it's almost the case of stop trying to control it, because control is definitely not working anymore.
Right.
And finally, believe in a divine state of grace is operating in your life. So just know that all of what we are experiencing at the moment, there is a divine state of grace. And even though I mentioned that I'd gone through such a very, very hard time, and you were part of many of my conversations and rantings, Paul, but I think I did saying, for some reason I feel protected. For some reason I feel that it's all right.
Wow.
For some reason I feel that I've just got to go through this. And I think that is what it means to be in grace. You might not be liking it. You might be fighting it tooth and nail. But there's some level of knowingness within you that this is absolutely what you must be going through. And what I've concluded is that for what I went through, I'm really beginning to understand that I am the creator of my life. I'm really beginning to understand that it all comes from within me. I'm beginning to understand the dissolving of the opposites. I'm beginning to understand the dissolving of the illusion and the creation of one's own reality. So, you know what? 4 months of being uncomfortable in the bigger scheme of things, and in the bigger scheme of infinity and eternal life, hey, I think that was worth the sacrifice. What do you think, Paul?
I think I'm absolutely listening to a wonderful master relate the stories of the unfolding journey, and it's absolutely wonderful to listen to it, Michelle.
So, and I really think that there's a lot of people out there, whether you practice Balvaspata or not, there's a lot of people that are really, really struggling, especially with things like Trump coming into power, especially with, and again, the world is showing us these extreme opposites. And one of the questions that I said to myself is, how can we actually be getting somebody like Trump? And the thought that I had there, Paul, was that maybe we took liberalism too far. Maybe when we were in the liberal paradigm, we forgot to put in boundaries. We forgot to put in disciplines. We forgot to put in structures. And more, we allowed for things to just be without any organization and structure. And that clearly has also not worked.
Right. Yeah, I think
that's just a thought on that.
Absolutely fascinating insight. And I think what's happened here is that we are certainly out of the ordinary realm of beingness any longer. Someone actually commented to me that if Hillary Clinton had got in as, the president-elect now in winning these elections, she would have just done what the other presidents had done, but in terms of her personality and her way, knowing full well that these are figureheads that we're speaking about without actually much power, but they've just got personality, a lot of them. But now we've got something that's completely unknown, completely unsure. We don't know what the next step will be, and that makes everybody question themselves.
Yes. And that's not a bad thing. If we are meant to be getting into self-sovereignty, we have to start questioning ourselves. We have to start questioning, so how much of this in my reality am I creating? And if I want to change that external environment, what do I have to do within myself to begin to reflect a different world that I want to live in. And that becomes, this whole concept of self-responsibility. There are so many layers and so many depths of understanding to that. And I'm only just beginning to realize that. I'm beginning to realize that I'm understanding that with my heart now as opposed to just with my mind. But for a very long time it was my mind, and that made it very, very difficult, but I didn't know how else to do it. So maybe we have to go through these mind games that we play so that we come out on the other side, because then we've done the journey from the mind to the heart.
That's it, through realization, by knowing that what is not is not real, and what is also not real, but it's what we create as we're going along. And I'm feeling that very often, what I'm realizing for myself is that I've had the perception available to me, the insights, and I've gained them all. But to actually learn the lesson of the moment through that insight is actually put it into a state of powerful action within myself, so that I'm now getting a perspective and a powerful process altogether.
Yes, and that's the difference now. It's gone beyond understanding. It actually starts, I can almost feel my realizations becoming cellular. You and Diane spoke about the whole restructuring of the DNA. And I think when we're beginning to understand with the essence of our lives, when it becomes a heart understanding as opposed to a mind understanding, we really are beginning to change our DNA and our cellular structures.
Really incredible. And I think there's a trust, as you were saying earlier, you're realizing that there's a profound moment where you can trust yourself through all of this. And I think that's what builds it, that knowingness within, that you are supported, and that these shifts are all happening because you are realizing that, I'm saying you, I'm meaning we, cosmically, are all able to actually understand that journey is now unfolding.
Yes. But it's not like learning your ABC. It's slightly different. A little more is required from us. So on that basis, I think that one of the other things that, because trust and surrender are the two tools that we are given by the Seer Men to actually get through this this time, so that we can get to the other side, so that we can become resurrected. I also then looked at the concept of surrender, because if these are the tools, then we really need to understand it in our own lives, for however that means for us.
Sure.
So would you mind if I actually shared with you some of the insights that I got from surrender?
I'd love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, so first of all, surrendering is not a submission. It signifies a need to yield to a higher power, which is really your higher knowing within yourself. Now, isn't that incredible?
Absolutely profound,
it's not about surrendering to another power. It's not about surrendering to anything outside of yourself. It's actually about yielding to a higher power, a higher knowing that is within yourself. It is about giving up resisting your life. In other words, to go with the flow, to look at the things that are happening and say to yourself, I think the quicker we can begin to say, let me understand why this is happening to me, because it's a reflection of something within me. If I can then look at what I'm doing within myself, I can begin to change the external manifestation of that. And that then puts us into complete control of our lives, doesn't it, Paul?
I think it certainly puts us in control of the moment, which is really what we have to look at. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, okay, the moment is my life at that moment.
Yeah. Do you often feel like that as well, is that you only have this moment, and anything beyond that is just an enclosure, if you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's why when we surrender, we need to be bounded from our egos, and we need to open up to our intuitive self. So it's interesting that trust and surrender is about going more into the intuitive self, that knowingness, that highness, that we are all oneness, and actually really beginning to do that again, the journey from the mind to the heart, that this is really the truth right now.
Sure.
It's about, surrender is also about releasing our old belief systems and our self-inflicted boundaries, and to welcome in the unlimited possibilities. Now, Almin talks about all this all the time, doesn't she?
And I think it's so current. Yeah, the whole process from her seems so current. But again, it might be something that I'm noticing particularly because it's what I'm working on, so that's my perspective. But I'm glad that you're bringing that up as well, because it shows that it's your perspective.
Yes, yes. And really, this time of releasing the old belief systems, I felt a little bit angry about this, or a little bit aggro about this over the weekend, because it's like, well, what is an old belief system?
Yeah.
How do we even begin to define that? And I think that anything that keeps you stuck in your ego and keeps you stuck in limitation is an old belief system.
Right.
Whereas if we're going into infinite possibilities and we're going into the realm of the unknown, well, then old belief systems just don't serve us within that, like opposites are here, good and bad.
Yeah.
And that's an old belief system in opposites. The new system is opposites have actually merged. And within that merging, there is so much confusion because we want to make something black or white.
Yeah. Yeah, we want something to fit into our current belief systems to be comfortable, and then we call that spiritual. But in fact, it's well, I want to use the word opposite, but it's unreal. It's just something that we identifying as our own reality.
Yes, yes. A long time ago, there was in my Buddhist practice, I learned two sides of the same coin. And I think there's a lot of power in that within the coin, it has a head and a tail. But the essential elements of the coin, the essential elements of who we are, is there. Whether we express that in the positive or the negative is entirely up to the nature of that coin.
Right.
Because the coin is intrinsic type of thing. And I feel that to be the case right now, is that we are who we are. We've got, they speak about the shadow side of Donald Trump, and that he's actually bringing out the shadow manifestations of an unconscious global thinking. And likewise, even within ourselves, the positive and the negative, if we can start getting out of, I've got to be this or that, which is again an opposition, we can then and say to ourselves, I have to be neither. I don't have to be black or white, because black and white are now merged. I don't have to be good or bad. I don't have to judge myself to be good or bad, because it is what it is. And what lies behind that, what is the intent that I have?
And I think
if my intent is to cause harm, then that's then that's not going to be to mine or to the greater good of other people.
That's it. But I think one of the things there is also to be available to what is necessary at that moment, what is required from within you, and being able to bring that up. So there's no fixed identity or reaction. There's just a response to what is necessary at this moment. And for me, that's powerful. Does it make sense to you?
I lost you for a moment there, but yes, I think it's very much about the moment. And because if we're working within the unknown, that moment is unknown, and that's what we've got. So yes, I totally agree with you on that one.
I'm smiling quite often about what we do, because as we research material for the show, and as we all have our discussions in the week beforehand. I've actually just been looking at some of the earlier classes by Almeen, and one of them is what is a God, and then what is the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. And Almeen has been discussing all of these things in those particular audio clips, which are pretty old. But now it's fantastic to hear you coming up and saying, well, there we go, ABC. Oh, sorry, there's the ABCs for you now. But, where are we at with all of this and what our understanding is?
Yes, yes. You see, the thing is, Paul, I think that is, in a way, almost the function of a seer, is that it's a very wise person that actually, it's the pioneer. They set the tone. I can tell you that I've been trying to understand a lot of Almeen's work for a long time, and most of the time I feel very, very confused. Right. But all of a sudden, the strange thing is that in the last week, there's just seems to have been this consolidation where all these confusions and just not knowing has, I don't know, it's just crystallized, it's just formed, and I have a sense of understanding now. I have a sense of knowingness, whereas before I couldn't even read a sentence and understand it. It was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. So I really do think that, yes, Almeen did speak about, has spoken about these things for a very long time, but I'm just catching up to it. I don't know where everybody else is in terms of the spectrum, but that's where I am. I'm only catching up now.
But I think that's beautiful by itself, to recognize that journey, to find that purpose within yourself and know that it's something brand new for you to discover. I mean, that's seriously exciting stuff. Yes, it is.
It is. And all I can say is that, it's that age-old thing that if the body remembered how to give birth to a baby, a woman would never fall pregnant for the second time. And it's the truth. But for some reason they forget, mentally, emotionally, physically. And that just reminds me of the same thing, is that I've always said that spiritual growth is not for sissies, because it doesn't just happen. It seems to, it definitely doesn't just happen. There seems to be work. And if somebody had told you how hard and difficult it's going to be, we would never start.
Absolutely
we would never
incredible.
Start. We would want to be in our little comfort zones.
Hence the part, the power of the moment is so important for us all to understand and to just hold on to and work with what we have right now.
Right. And that's what I'd like to actually maybe share with the listeners, if there's anybody out there that might also be going through a very confusing or difficult time, is hang in there. Don't give up. There actually is a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how mundane that might sound. It is worth carrying on with the journey.
I think it's important to look at that and to work with it all the time. Almeen Teachers has got a lot of wisdoms and little sayings that come out just to carry us through a lot of those particular processes. But also to learn not to go through everything through opposition, but, to take it through grace, which is really the teachings of Belvaspatar, where we take light and frequency and we illuminate and highlight the issues within ourselves, and then we, use the frequencies to dissolve those particular issues in our own way and in our own time.
Yes. And although what you've just said now made perfect sense to my logical mind, over all these years, only now am I really beginning to understand that.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
On a very deep and cellular level. So, well, thank you for never giving up on me. That's the part I'm appreciating right now.
Oh, thank you for being the mirror as well for all of us, for me especially, to be able to look into for my own processes.
You're welcome, Paul.
Michelle, I just want to tell you talk about birthing a baby. There's a new a fragrance out through Spiritual Journeys from Almeen, and it's called Angel Lullaby.
Oh, wow.
And,
well, I must say that with Almeen posting photographs of her grandson, and he took his first steps, I think, in one of the little videos.
Yes.
I'm not surprised that that's coming through.
Well, the title of that was, How to View Setbacks. And Almeen was saying in that video of her grandson Emerson, by viewing setbacks as a temporary form of guidance, we retain the fluidity to get right back up and continue our eternal journey with trust and optimism. How's that for being in the moment?
I really love those words, Paul. I really did. And I think that's what we've got to all remember right now. The setback that we experience in our lives, in whichever way it's coming out, in work, relationships, money, or however it's manifesting, is actually a gift. And we need to actually start looking at it slightly differently, even though we're suffering in the moment. But if we could just have that different perspective, I think we might be able to get through it a lot quicker.
Well, I think one of the signs of that particular process going on for me is that even though I'm aware of those particular moments unfolding and you have to work through them, even though you may not wish to or may not desire to, at the end of the day you have to actually work through them, but at the same time you're busy creating newness for the pathway ahead.
Yes. And I think the other thing that I might just mention here, Paul, is that when I was going through my stuff, one of the things that kept coming into my mind is there's an old way in which I used to behave or react to this type of situation. And I just had to keep finding myself, don't react in the old way. Rather do nothing and see that there's another way in which to handle this. And that was hard because the ego and the cellular memory of the old belief system definitely wants to go back into blame and judgment and it's your fault and all of that. Yeah. And I really had to work at not going there. And yes, it was a setback, but yes, I think that in time right now and in time to come, it's probably going to be one of my biggest gifts.
Absolutely beautiful to listen to this. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
You're welcome.
And I really wish that and I hope that the Light family around us that are listening either live or on podcast have just taken something from this and just understood that we're all in a state of mastery and that we're all walking our path in as much honesty and accountability as we know how. And isn't that just a marvelous moment to share between all of us? Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you to the listeners, and may you have a wonderful week.
We'll speak again soon. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was the Master Michelle speaking with us from her home, and luckily our technology is working tonight, so that was a great, exciting conversation, and we're really grateful for the wisdom of what she is sharing as she fluidly moves through different aspects of creating new processes in her life. Absolutely inspiring and so beautiful to share. Thank you, Michelle, indeed. What we are doing here at Team Belvaspada South Africa, we are busy developing many different online processes and structures of support using Almeen's teachings and going into some of the niche teachings along the way, into aspects of what illusion means, of what reality means, of what perception and power means, and getting into the depth of it so that we can share together as a family online, in online or webinar form. And one of the things that we've been working on is looking at what's called the mystical interdimensional gates. And this takes us back to 2009. And as we listened to that audio clip from Almeen earlier, she was saying is that the old teachings of hers are still incredibly valid. And again, we're seeing more and more of the opportunities we have to work with all of these teachings and how they have a deeper perspective and deeper meaning for us nowadays. So the mystical interdimensional gate is all about the alchemy of uncovering the illusion within us and then dissolving it. And there are 16 illusions that obstruct the opening of a higher life. and a richer dimension of existence. They centered around our inability to see the perfection of life from an eternal perspective. When we eliminate these illusions, then the mystical gate opens, and of course then we go into a state of realization, and as we realize, we're able to dissolve it in a very powerful way to allow whatever lies underneath then to come to the surface. So there are 16 illusions, as we said, but just for today's show, I'd just like to highlight 3 of them, and they're the top 3, and they're very, very important to look at, because I think it highlights what we've all been saying throughout the show today, and perhaps you're recognizing these 3 different aspects for yourself. And if you are, take it and use it. It's your gift, and you're able to take your own journey with what we are sharing right now. The first one, thinking that we need to save others. The second, thinking that it is our responsibility to make life better for others. And the third, thinking that creation could be a reality when nothing new can be created. Absolutely mind-boggling stuff. So there's those 3 aspects about it, and you might need to just rewind if you're on podcast just to listen to them again, or just email us or contact us and we'll send you what those 16 illusions are. Of course, you've noticed by now that my voice is not doing too well, and we're coming to the end of our show right now, but I think we need to just look at a different aspect of these things that we are creating, and I'd like to share with you a track that we have discovered. It's called Come to Life, which is a meditation by a yogi called David Trapp. And I'd like to play it with you for a while. It is 5.5 minutes long, so we will run just a few minutes over time this evening. But we're not going to be using this actual thing in our online teachings and our online webinars that we are developing. But this is the concept that we are working with, using Al-Amin's teachings and then bringing it together in terms of developing some insights and processes for us all to get involved with. So please enjoy it. It's called Come to Life. And his wording is absolutely spectacular for me. I thoroughly enjoy it. And of course, the title, Come to Life, means everything for me. Enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side of this.
Isn't it beautiful? The whole creative process. You create, you get inspired, and more doors open. But it's like the whole time you've been holding your creativity back because of a fear of how the current people in your life might react. But you never considered the people you might attract. Please, don't attach yourself to the people you know and their reactions to your work. Besides family, everyone else is in your life by choice. The decisions you've made up to this point is what has created your present conditions. Thus, your current and coming decisions can change and create your reality and human experience, and that includes the people in your life. False friends come and go, so it's not worth weighing their ignorance against your passion. You're yearning to come to life. And what better time to start than now? Create your life to your standards. You will attract like minds. And those who no longer fit the picture fall back into ignorance and its deep, dark wells of self-consciousness and insecurity. You will zig while they zag. You don't know what others want, only what you want, and that is to create. So create wholeheartedly, completely open and exposed. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. That is only your inner child asking, begging for permission to play. If you are seeking permission, well, guess what? I give you my full permission to open up and be free to the world. Free from self-doubt. Free from concern. Free from worry. And free from ignorance. Because the reality of it all is that it's really just about you and your inner child. It's totally okay to be childlike, but not childish. No. And that's where everyone else gets it wrong. The experience you have is the one you are creating. I'm afraid it's that simple. We carry around huge loads of baggage that we filter our daily experiences through. Thus, you don't totally see the world for how it truly is, but only how you are. This baggage filter is what is preventing you from coming to life. And what is sad is that it doesn't even exist. It's a thought, an idea, an event from your past that you manipulated little by little every time you replay it in your head in order to victimize yourself more. Realize now that it is just an idea, living unwelcome in your head, and the painful outcome that you keep coming to is also in your head. You have the choice and freedom to play director and change what has happened. This is true. You have full artistic freedom to recreate the event as you wish. No more pain, no more drama, no more fear. So friends, go now, recreate it how you see fit. Recreate it until it no longer carries that drowning weight. Recreate it so that it becomes lighter and looser, and eventually detaches completely. And then, when you've removed the pain that you've been carrying around and filtering even your joyous moments through, you get to start from scratch and recreate yourself again. But this time, outwards, for the world to see and to admire your bravery, and eventually inspiring others to identify and see for the first time the empty shell of their baggage that is no longer serving them. And that, my friends, that is what it is all about. The people you will attract into your life by dropping your old dirty filter and finally doing the very thing that God, the universe, energy, and yourself have been wanting of you this whole time. To come to life.
And you're listening to Radio Belvaspata South Africa's show for the 10th of November. Welcome back in studio with me, your host Paul, and his extremely croaky voice. Amazing how we do these things, but that's what it is. A radio show needs talking. So that's what we're doing this evening and thoroughly enjoying ourselves. We've been listening to the Master Michelle, we've been listening to the Seer Almin, and we've been working with a great deal of incredible life-changing wisdoms. So when we look at some of the teachings of Belvaspata and, what is illusion and some of those discussions along the way, there's an aphorism that Almin actually recommends. And she says, through the resurrection of my body and soul, I am eternally self-regenerating being. Through the resurrection of my body and soul, I am an eternally self-regenerating being. And she says, if you just say that as a mantra for 30 days, it actually becomes part of your structures, part of who you are, and you begin to emit on that particular frequency. Have you done yourself a favor and got the book of daily mantras, which is available on Almin Diary or spiritualjourneys.com? It's a gift of inspiration. Almin's description of it is, let the mantras be your daily guide to a higher life of mastery. Surrender to the fluid images. Let go of mind's obsession of wanting to label and control. Approach them from an emotional standpoint, allowing them to play across your inner senses like fingers striking the strings of a harp. Absolutely incredibly beautiful. So, our closing comment for tonight's show, and thank you to Michelle for joining us, and thank you to all of you as well for joining us. Closing comment is, where you put your attention and energy becomes your reality, or your version of the world. As everything on our planet swirls with seeming chaos, it is so important to become an observer, to detach from that which can only breed fear. This system of fear-broking. Fear keeps one small, and interrupts all of our divinity. It is fear that has brought these situations to bear. So detach, observe, and then step towards the magical difference you can make. This is Team Belvaspita South Africa signing out. I'd like to say thank you to Nico for handling our sound desk tonight. I'd like to say thank you to our Wi-Fi for holding firm. And I'd like to just say thank you for the incredible blessings of the rain that has brought an amazing amount of relief, even though we are seeing such tragedy and such immense processes of flooding as we're going along, so fast that it all happens. But that is what we call life as it is at this moment in time. Good luck to all of you for the week ahead. Please send us your comments. Contact us on Facebook through Spreaker.com. Connect with us on Instagram. Connect with us through our website www.belvaspita.co.za. And until next week, the eternal ascension qualities are yours to work with. Love, praise, gratitude, and of course, trust or surrender. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Radio Belvaspita South Africa. Thank you for listening and sharing in our discussion. Should you have any questions with regards to the healing modality of Belvaspita or have any healing needs, please send us an email to info@belvaspita.co.za or add comments to our page on Spreaker.com so we can work on providing a suitable response. We now close this episode with the eternal ascension qualities of love, praise, gratitude and trust, and look forward to sharing again with you next week. Goodbye.